confusion, awkwardness. Let's dive into one of the biggest social dilemmas faced by bilingual families. Which language should you use in public when you're trying to raise bilingual, trilingual, or multilingual children? Stay tuned to find out. If you're raising your kids to speak more than one language, there must have been a time when you were out and about with your child in the presence of other parents and you found yourself wondering, which language should I use with my kids when there are other people around? I bet this question has crossed your mind many times. In today's video, I'll share with you my personal experience and advice for such situations. Before we get started, if you're interested in this type of content, please consider subscribing to this channel so you'll always be the first to know when a new video comes out. And don't forget to hit that like button, as that will help other people like you find us. Thank you! For those of you who are new to my channel, my husband and I have been raising my kids to be trilingual in Chinese, Russian and English in the UK since my son was born in 2016. At the beginning of this journey, we did not really have a very consistent approach in terms of which language to use with the kids when we were in public. While my husband and I were, broadly speaking, practicing the one parent, one language strategy, we weren't always consistent in speaking to our kids exclusively in those languages, both at home and outside. By age 3, our son could understand all 3 languages very well, but would only respond to us in English. Around that time, I met a French dad who was successfully raising his kids to be bilingual in French and English. I asked him for his secret, so to speak, and he said that the very first thing we had to do was this. We had to speak to the kids exclusively in our languages, even in public, when around other people. And this is what he himself did with his kids. At the time, I was slightly apprehensive about doing this. I'm not entirely sure why, but I guess part of me just thought that it would be rude to speak to my children in a language other people around us didn't understand. The French dad reassured me that in London, where we lived at the time, no one would care. And even if it bothered some people, so what? And here, my friends, is the truth. To successfully raise bilingual, trilingual, or multilingual children, you have to grow a thicker skin and learn not to worry too much about what other people think. I know it's not always easy. Like many people, I used to worry a lot about what other people would think. Would people find it rude that we spoke to our kids in a language they didn't understand? Would people find the sound of our language offensive? Would people think we were being pretentious in flaunting our linguistic abilities in public? These concerns are absolutely normal, unless you're one of a small minority of highly self-confident and self-assured people. I would say it's a given that these doubts would cross your mind at some point. But 4 years on, I've now grown a much thicker skin and I try not to worry too much about what others might think. It's because I've realized that French dad was right. Speaking to your children in your target language at all times, even in public, is the best way to help your child become fluent in that language. It's simply a matter of consistency. The more consistently you use the target language with your child, the more it enforces the need to use the language from your child's perspective. If you frequently switch to English or whatever the majority language is where you are when speaking to your child whenever you're out in public, you effectively diminish the need to speak the language from the child's point of view. At this point, you might want to ask, okay, I definitely see the benefit of doing this, but isn't it just plain bad manners to speak to my child in a language that those around us don't understand? As I said before, I totally see where you're coming from. Most of us want to be considerate and we hate to be rude and to be judged for it. But let me offer some coping strategies or techniques to help alleviate some of this potential social awkwardness. Personally, I make a distinction between public conversations that only involve me and my child or children versus public conversations that involve a third party that doesn't speak our target language, which in our case is Mandarin, or Russian when my husband is involved. In the first type of situation, where I'm talking to my children around other people, but where the conversation doesn't directly involve a third party, I might say to the third party, "Sorry, I hope you don't mind me speaking to my son in Chinese." Of course, if it's someone we already know well, you don't have to say that every time you hang out. This way, at least you are showing awareness of basic manners, as well as other people's feelings and perceptions. I think most reasonable people would be okay with it. Some people might still have negative thoughts about you and your parenting technique, and might even say things about you behind your back. But hey, you literally have no control over what other people think or say, so it all goes back to the whole thing about growing a thicker skin. I've also made another video about dealing with other people's negative reactions. The link is in the description box below if you're interested. In the second type of situation, where I'm talking to my children in public and the conversation directly involves a third party, I do make a concession and switch to English to be polite. For example, if my children and I were hanging out with another family and the mom asked the children in English if they would like a biscuit, I would in this situation address my kids in English and say something like, "Oh, would you like a biscuit? Don't forget to say thank you." I think this is a realistic and reasonable compromise. I mean, I might have a thicker skin now, but it's not that thick, okay? You still want to have a social life and be friends with other families. We all do. Before we finish, we need to address a serious issue that may affect some multilingual families. It's something I've discussed in my other video about dealing with other people's negative reactions. Sadly, families like us have to confront the fact that racism and xenophobia do still exist and may impact how multilingual families want to communicate in public. According to a Guardian news article, reports of people being berated or attacked in America while communicating in Spanish are on the rise. In 2020, the story of a mother and daughter being attacked in New York City for speaking English gained prominent news coverage. A Polish mom I personally know told me that she got dirty looks from other shoppers in a supermarket in London for speaking to her daughter in Polish. Others have told me that they feel more comfortable speaking English in public for fear of drawing undesirable attention to themselves. I would love to be able to tell parents to simply ignore such fears and carry on speaking to their kids in their native language regardless. But sadly, we live in a world where racism and xenophobia do genuinely exist. So if you're among those parents who are facing such issues, I'm truly sorry about your situation, and you must do what you personally feel comfortable with, given your personal circumstances and wider social environment. So, to sum up, my advice to parents raising bilingual, trilingual or multilingual children is to speak to your child in your target language, even in public, unless the conversation directly involves a third party or speaking in your target language might have safety implications. Here, I just want to emphasize that what I've shared in this video is just my personal opinion and what I feel is the most effective way to raise your child to be fluent in more than one language. There is, of course, no right or wrong way to do things, and you have to do what feels right for your family and your circumstances. Thank you for watching today's video. If you got some value from it, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, as this will really help us grow. You might also want to check out my book, Bilingual and Trilingual Parenting 101, for more tips and advice for parents who want to raise multilingual children. The link is in the description box below. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Ciao!